Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I am Paul John Dykes and I'm joined today by Lawrence Conley and Jared Hill. Jared, you're dialing in from the Celtic Down Under headquarters over in Australia. How did you enjoy that game yesterday? How did you watch it?
Oh, it was a bit of a doozy for me because Monday morning, 2 a.m. kickoff, got to be up at 6 for work. So I was like, how do I juggle it? So I had two options. Option one was go to bed early, get up, run the risk of snoozing your alarm and missing the game entirely, or putting your phone in a social media blackout, getting up, watching it first thing in the morning like it was live, which is what I ended up doing. And yeah, it actually worked out. I didn't get any spoilers for once. So happy days.
Absolutely.
I thought you might have been up to Waiala, to the Brazen Shed, mate.
I wish one day I'll get there.
Oh, it's a dream, isn't it? It is a dream. Up and visit Gordon Conlon and the Waiala boys.
Only a lazy 14-hour drive, Lawrence. That's all that is.
That's nothing.
Lawrence,
Aussie, mate.
You get around, Lawrence. I've got to say, I love the Celtic Down Under logo, which is obviously in the top right of the screen. Get onto the YouTube, subscribe to the channel, follow the guys on the social media channels and support our boys over in Australia. We have been talking about the Ange Revolution for some time now, Lawrence, and it's just, it's clicking into another gear now. I think a lot of the chat leading up to this game, I'm a great believer that this game, right, and it's two different guises, doesn't really need the contrived drama that we saw in the week and weeks leading up to it, Lawrence. I mean, the fixture looks after itself, and the fact that it was a cup final. But I was delighted to see that Celtic and Ange didn't get involved in all that nonsense.
Yeah, but it's obviously not coming from us. But some of the guys over there must be feeling the pressure. There's only two trophies left before 9 of them. So it's got to be.
You're stuttering a wee bit there, Lawrence. So I'm going to throw this over to Jared and hopefully your signal sorts itself out. Just a little stutter there. Jungle Lion, how petty were they not putting Celtic on their jersey yesterday? Shows you their mindset. Well, it's all that kind of stuff, Jungle Lion, and all the chat around the game leading up to it. I think, though, Jared, that as long as Ange and the boys are showing their true class, that's all we're interested in.
I actually think it's funny because you look at it and it's like you can take it one or two ways. It's either, out of sight, out of mind, we don't worry about them, and it's like a reverse psychology, and it's just going to keep making them, if we don't say anything, it's like then they're just going to get more rolled up because it's like the silent treatment. But sometimes you just want to see the managers come out and give them a slap.
Hey, listen, absolutely.
Like Chris Sutton did a good job for us, giving him a bit of a slap around, and I'm glad it came from a former player, and that was it.
This is the thing. Chris Sutton, for me, is he's not a pantomime villain, Lawrence, right? I mean, you've met him a number of times. I just think that he does play the part of someone who will defend Celtic when they need defended. And the quickness and the speed at which that seemed to rile up Michael Beale was astonishing. But I think it says more about Michael Beale than Chris Sutton or anyone else, Lawrence. And the thing is, you've got to go into these games laser focused on the task at hand. You can't allow yourself to be, taking left, right, and centre and all these dramas in the press leading up to it. I mean, Jared done a good job in not knowing the score before he watched the game yesterday. But normally, every player, every manager, every member of staff will know exactly who's saying what leading up to this game. But I'm of the view that we've come out of it and our class is intact, Lawrence, and it should always be that way.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Chris is a very dedicated commentator, puts the work in. He's not going to be outwitted by Michael Beale, much like Ange isn't going to be outwitted by him, So they're just making us look daft with the comments that came out at, it's just empty vessels making a lot of noise.
Yeah.
They've got no chance of winning anything this season. The treble was very much, I think it's going to be another treble.
Lawrence, they were talking about a treble. They were talking about a treble last week. Neil McCann talking about a treble for Rangers last week. And we're sitting here, like you say. I mean, and by the way, this is not complacency. It's not arrogance. It's about looking at the situation in terms of the league and where we are in the league. You then look at the Scottish Cup. Yeah, we all know what can happen in a cup game. Absolutely. You know, it could come down to a couple of bad performances, a poor refereeing decision, then you're staring at a defeat. I totally get that. But I'm looking at a side at the moment that if you rewind, Lawrence, to this time last year, what I mean by that is the League Cup final last year, and you look at the quality of the side that we have now and the depth of the squad that we've got right now, I'm far more confident that we could go ahead and win all 3 trophies this season.
Yeah, far better place. You know, I just certainly put his mark on the entire club, hasn't he? We've got 2 players for every position now. And, you know, we know how to play, or the players now know how to play the way Ange wants them to play. It's kind of evident when you watch both teams, you know, that there's a huge gulf between them. Not just in class on and off the park. You know, walking off the park rather than applauding the winners. You know, minutes silence, sectarian singing through a minute's silence. All the comments in the press beforehand about how good they are. It really is amazing because kind of close season they're brilliant, and then they're run up to playing us. Apparently they're amazing. It just never happens on the day for them, does it?
It's a case of imposter syndrome, Lawrence. That's what it is. Not as just Beale in the manager knowing he's trying to live up to Gerrard and everyone before him, and then you've got their fans, you know, trying to pretend that they are Rangers, not Sevco. So there's the whole imposter thing. That's why the squeaky wheel gets the oil. That's why they're getting all the attention and all the noise here.
Yeah.
If you look at Beale, he's obviously come out and you're saying, you know, he's always attaching himself to Gerrard. Maybe that's his standard. 1 trophy out of 9. That's what he's aiming for. Oh, it's not a standard that anyone should be trying to emulate with a thought 1 out of 9. You know,
we're talking about setting the standards, and obviously the banner that came out. You know, just put that to bed. And I think that when you look at the stats, you look at the trophy laden near history that Celtic have had. I go back to a point I made the other night, which is probably why my throat's a wee bit ropey. So apologies in advance. You might prefer if I sound like this or can barely speak, but it's 3 or 4 days of events, and then obviously the cup final yesterday. And my throat is in tatters, but we were chatting, and I'll come back to this. We were chatting about standards around the Martin O'Neill era, and the fact that since he took over, you know, the trophy haul that we've had since then, this was before our latest one was, and I need to double check my notes here, but I'm sure it was 36 trophies in 23 years since Martin O'Neill took over. Because what I was doing was comparing that, Jared, to the 23 years preceding Martin's arrival, where we had won 15 trophies since 1977. Between that era and the era we've had since, and all we keep hearing is Scotland's most successful club, the world's most successful club. Celtic Football Club are by far the biggest and the best. And Ange hasn't been afraid to tell us that either, has he, Jared?
Not at all. And it's not bluster from him. It's cold hard facts. Ange doesn't say things for the sake of a headline. It's cold hard facts. That's what it is. We're the most successful recently. And I think it's 2 more trophies or something to beat the combined total of the guys playing out of Ibrox. And then once they're in the rearview mirror, see yous, jog on. We're on our way.
No, you're spot on. And it's something that I would like to talk about once we get through the games, the performances, the goals, is the aftermath. What does this mean for both clubs? And I think that's really relevant in the aftermath of that victory, because what it means for Celtic is one thing, but what it means for the opposition, we can also have a wee look at that. Martin O'Neill comes in and to say, love that O showed he won't take any guff off them straight from the moment he came on. I like his approach, Lawrence. I like O's approach. He's a big physical lad. He got booked pretty quickly, and I just hope that doesn't become a feature of his game, because I felt that Giakoumakis was unfairly treated by the refs during his time in Scotland. But Big O, he knows what he's here for, and he gives you a completely different proposition than Kyogo, who we'll get to as well, because he's just a wee genius. Were you impressed with O? And also the introduction of Aksabanovic, I thought his cameo was very, very good indeed.
Listen, I think O's an upgrade in Giakoumakis. I think he's got the physicality, but he's a lot more mobile. I think he's also got the potential to grow more than Giakoumakis has. So, yeah, think he's going to be a big player for us. Haksabanovic, he's looked good for us any time he's played. He's struggled to get a run of games through injury. I think there was bereavement in his family as well. So it just shows you the depth of squad Ange's building, though, isn't it? No, Haksabanovic, outstanding player. You think, a few years back he'd been one of the first names in the team sheet. Now he's just another member of the squad. It's just the level Ange's pulling everything up to, isn't it?
No, you're right.
Fair play to Theo. He's shown he's not going to be bullied, and that's what we need. We need players that can stand up and be counted. What does the trophies mean to us compared to them? For us, it's just another League Cup. This is the norm. It's the way of life. You went out with the stats there since Neil came in, and probably it's the norm for them as well, not winning, because recently they don't really win anything, do they? Certainly not very, very few in front of fans. It's just going to continue.
But it'll continue, Lawrence, like you say, not through elitism or the fact that we think we're entitled to success. It's because we do it right. We do all the preparation right. We do the finances right. We've now got the recruitment right. We've got the right man in charge of the football department at Celtic. And that's what it comes down. It's no luck or entitlement. It's just that Celtic have gone out there and they've done the hard graft. And you can see it in the likes of Callum McGregor after the game when he's talking. These guys have got to listen to all that noise, but they just go out and continually produce. I'm bringing this up from Danny Riley. Great display, Hoops, but Turnbull couldn't even raise a smile. Fight for your place, David. You've got the talent. I think there's a group of players, Jared. We've mentioned who's trying to obviously fight for a jersey. It's going to be a tough one for him. Haksabanovic, like Lawrence says, he has looked good, but where do you play him if he's going to start? And David Turnbull's another one who's made an impact this season when he's came on. But again, it just shows you the quality. O'Reilly's another one now, because we'll get to Moy, but O'Reilly's not getting that jersey anytime soon. It shows you the quality of the transfer windows that we've had since Ange's come in, that we've got this depth of squad now that, even if someone isn't playing that well, that someone on the bench is able to take that jersey and run with it.
Yeah, 100%. It's a squad game for us now. I remember when we had Rodgers was in there, and you had before that with Lennon, it was always pretty much new. You had a squad of 13, 14 players that the starting 11 was going to come out of every week. And with Ange, we've got that much depth that if Johnson was to go out, Ralston comes in, we don't lose anything. If Moy comes out or, if Jota comes out, you've got a Barter and you've got O'Reilly who can come in and fill it. As you said about Turnbull, I noticed that as well watching it this morning. It was he's a stand there. Everyone's up there getting their medals and he's just got his hands in his pockets and his jacket pockets up on the thing, just looking like he would rather be anywhere else. It's disappointing. I don't want to go back to the COVID season and the body language experts and all this sort of stuff, but he just did not look happy at all.
No, he didn't. I remember JP Mason, who comes in on a Thursday and has done for a number of years now, telling me that after a European game, he deliberately stayed behind to watch the disappointment of Celtic and the success and the jubilation of the opponents. And he did it deliberately as a motivation. And I think that if you're a player, you turn that into determination. If you're a guy like David Turnbull looking around, you're surely saying to yourself, by the time, if and when we get to the Scottish Cup final, I want to be on that park. I want to be the guy that's going up with a loudspeaker to the Green Brigade. And I want to be the capo. That's the way that I think a footballer should look at it. We'll get to some of the other positions on the park because I think there were some real heroes, some heroic performances, and we'll run through some of those. Sean Fairley, thank you for tuning in. I announced this morning on the socials, we've just hit 11 million views on the YouTube channel, which is astonishing. I'm going to get back to the impact of those people that have watched the show, subscribe to the channel, like the channel, and all this kind of stuff, because the live events have given me an opportunity to speak to a lot of you. And some of the feedback I've been getting is astonishing, and I'm going to have to share that with you. But before I do all that, Sean Fairley wants to say, now the emotion has subsided. And I spoke about this yesterday because, that 15 minutes felt like 15 hours when Rangers came back into the game. Hart never had to make a save. McGregor made 4 saves, and we missed 3 sitters. Magnificent resilience. Deserved winners. Hail, hail. You can get lost in the emotion of the game at the time, though, Lawrence, can't you?
Yeah, listen, it was great scenes in the Admiral where I was watching it. Pub that's not going to be there for long. But if you stand back and analyse it afterwards, like you probably watched it again this morning, that game was won at a canter. You know, there was only one team that was ever going to win it. We didn't miss sitters. Their keeper was busier. At no point did I ever think we were in danger of losing that game. And it, you know, in the past, in finals, we've been a lot closer, but the gulf is evident now. It is so big. And players like Turnbull's maybe looking on. He's only got 18 months left in his contract. He's maybe thinking this is passing him by. Because I don't think Ange will be sentimental to keep him about and think, you know, you played a lot for him when you first started. Ange is bringing in better players every transfer window. The team's improving every window as we go. I think maybe Turnbull's one of the guys that's going to move on in the summer. But for the performance of the team, absolutely outstanding.
I'm going to throw that one over to Jared. Lawrence used the word sentimentality. Does that exist in Ange's vocabulary or philosophy, Jared?
Come on, you already know the answer. We saw it last year. If he's going to get rid of anyone from the club, like I said on our pod about 2-3 weeks before it was announced, that the way I saw Ange, knowing that he was in the squad building, that either Rogic or Turnbull would be moving on. That's the way I look at it at the end of last season. And I expected it to be Turnbull. I didn't think he'd let the Aussie guy go. Sure enough, he did. So if he's letting the Aussie guy who's been at the club for 9 years, he's 1 year off getting his testimonial game, if he's letting him go, he's not going to hang around or worry about Turnbull and anything like that. It's like, how can I improve the team? What do we need to do to improve the team? And the number 10 position is probably the position for me that I think we need to upgrade above all else to make an impact in Europe next season.
And the thing with Turnbull, at his age, I get what the disappointment. I get that he wants to play first team football, but use it to inspire you and to push you on rather than mope about. And again, I'm being the body language expert here, so he might have been delighted. He was hiding it pretty well, I've got to say. But looking at the squad depth and just going back to what I said about O'Neill, Lawrence, I often go to the UEFA Cup final, and I know we had injury worries with regards to John Hartson. He was out that night in 2003, 20 years ago. But look at the substitutes that we had in the UEFA Cup final. We had Magnus Hedman, Jackie McNamara, Ulrich Larsson, Mohamed Mo Silla, Jamie Smith, David Fernandez, and Sean Maloney. And Sean Maloney at that time was a youngster coming through. It's not the Sean Maloney we came to know and the ability that he did have. So I don't even think we had that squad depth under the the Martin O'Neill era. And for me, when I look at this squad, and I'm always doing this, I'm always thinking to myself, is this the best team that I've seen as a Celtic supporter? Having watched the club physically since 1987 and seen some fantastic sides. I love the Centenary team, Lawrence. I love Tommy Burns' side. They played with a style and a fluidity, and there was entertainers and individuals, as well as the old school of Peter Grant and Paul McStay and Tommy Boyd. Then you get Martin O'Neill coming in. Then you get Brendan Rodgers coming in. And some tremendous results under Neil Lennon as well. Is this the best team you've seen as a Celtic fan, Lawrence? Is it up there?
It's definitely up there. Yeah, definitely up there. This, I'd say Tommy's, just for the style of football, was right at the top. Obviously, we were returning home from Europe on Friday nights, having to play on Saturday mornings, and the other lot were running illegal tax schemes. We weren't allowed to play players that were registered. Pulling out every trick in the book to stop Tommy. You know what? I don't think any tricks they've got is going to stop Ange.
No.
We've seen it this season. They've tried it, with VAR. It was an absolute farce, that game at Tynecastle, and there's been many farcical decisions this season, and taking 5 or 6 minutes to spot a clear and obvious error or to check for it. I don't think they can stop Ange. He's putting together something that is unstoppable. In Scotland anyway. And the next target is Europe. Jerry's touched on, I think it's going to be a number 10 that we need to improve on. And it looks to me like, Turnbull doesn't belong in his contract. I don't think he's got it in him to take us to the next level. I think we'll sell him and improve that position.
we've heard we never stop, we don't stop, Jared. But what Lawrence is saying is you can't stop. There is no one else out there who is able to. Now, I know the counter argument. I've got friends who support Dundee United, Aberdeen, Dunfermline, etc. And the counter argument is always, oh, it's just budget. You just make the same argument when you're playing in the Champions League. But you've got budgets, and then you've got how to use the budgets, Jared. I mean, you can misuse the budget that you've got. You can buy bad players. And all it takes is 2 or 3 poor transfer windows, and before you know it, you're not as strong. So, yeah, we do have a bigger budget, but we built that up ourselves, and now we're utilising it probably as well as I can remember Celtic utilising it. But I'm going to put it out there. I do think, as I'm sitting here at the moment, with more to come, this is the best Celtic team that I've seen. And you know how fond I am, as Lawrence says, of Tommy's team. I loved it. I loved the success of Brendan Rodgers. But I'm seeing a better brand of football. I've got more belief that even if Rangers were to pull that back to 2 each, I just think we would have stepped it up, would have made the changes, and we would have come back and won the game anyway. What about yourself? I know you're watching from afar. You're getting up at all times of the morning to watch the games. How do you rate this Anside, and this Anside that is still developing?
I'll take it on a slightly different tangent for you, Paul, because something I was thinking about when Lawrence was talking anyway. I haven't been a Celtic fan for 40 odd years, watching them since I was little one. This is the best Celtic team I can remember in my lifetime as well. So I agree with both of you on that front. Now, going back on the Ange side of it, seeing the way Ange took his squad and rebuilt it at South Melbourne, and then seeing how he rebuilt the Brisbane Roar to go on and do that Barcelona stuff. Then sitting in the crowd for that year, watching him at Melbourne Victory, gutting the team, rebuilding it, and then going from there to the Australian team and rebuilding that and seeing the constant evolution of him as a manager to then seeing what he did in Japan and now seeing what he's doing at Celtic. The way he's turning it over, just the evolution of Ange as well as and the style of football. It's just a joy to see. And I see, I'm lucky that this guy is at my club. As an Australian from the same town that Ange came from over here in Melbourne, having watched his teams back in 1996 in Lakeside Stadium for South Melbourne games, and now seeing him over in Scotland doing this at Celtic, it's just amazing. And the development in him and how quickly it is and the evolution of his game and all this, it's just amazing. So you tie that evolution for me into what I'm seeing as a Celtic fan, and this is the best Celtic squad that I've seen in my lifetime. It's just unbelievable. That's why there's so many Australian fans over here just like, yeah, we told you Ange was going to be great, and are just up and about it, because it's just, having seen this, it's like this is the glass ceiling that Australian football needed. Our footballers have gone to Europe, done the job in the top leagues, come back, whatever. But we need that manager to break through, and it's finally happening, and it's happening at my club.
No, you know this. You're right. You did tell us. And when I think back to those weeks where obviously there was quite a lot happening, Lawrence, and there were some faux pas, I think, in the mainstream media as well as anything else in relation to writing Ange off. There was a snobbery. It was interesting to see Alan Brazil at the game at the weekend, and I think he's realised his mistake and the error of his ways some time ago. At some point, I'm going to go back to the episodes where we were talking about the arrival of Ange. It'd be very, very interesting to see and hear what everybody was saying, exactly what everybody was saying. But it also came with a disappointment of how the board had failed, Lawrence, to make a decision early enough in the previous campaign. Then they had failed to make a decision in terms of getting a manager in and giving that manager the time to build the team for the Champions League and for the qualifiers against Midtjylland, because, John Kennedy had managed the team on a temporary basis for quite some period of time. We then ran down one blind alleyway and, fell over at the last hurdle. So you had all that kind of stuff. And then we were presented with Ange Postecoglou. And before anybody who then goes onto Twitter and becomes a know-all because they've got Google, we were talking to guys like Jared who had an intimate knowledge of his career. We weren't just Googling him and watching the same videos on YouTube as everybody else. The concerns were more about how the business was being conducted by Celtic rather than the concern of Ange. But very quickly you saw that this was a guy who, you know, he was going to tear it up and start again. And that's exactly what he's done. And now the evolution of the side is what we're seeing. We've seen Kyogo owning the League Cup 2 years running, Lawrence. Unbelievable achievement from Kyogo. But other people within that side as well. And now we're saying, what's he going to do next? You're then looking, and it's not just the legacy players like Turnbull who was already there. I mean, the 2 sales that we've made this season were 2 players that Ange brought in. So he's constantly evolving. What is the final article? Is there such a thing as a final article under Ange Postecoglou, Lawrence?
I don't think so. I mean, the next target's Europe, you know, and hopefully Ange is here for a long time. But and when he goes, hopefully, you know, whoever takes over, Ange will have left a great legacy. He'll have a squad with millions, a style of play that just relentlessly wins games. You know, creates chances, scores goals, doesn't concede a lot of chances. So he's building the foundations, you know, hopefully for at least another 9 in a row.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the distance between us and our nearest challengers, it's just growing, you know, season and season. It's phenomenal the job that Ange has done. But I think a lot of that comes with he doesn't waste his time with things that don't add to his vision or his value of a football club. You know, he doesn't go away and make daft statements to the press and run up to cup finals and that. He's too busy preparing his team to go out there and win it. Mm-hmm. You know, and get involved in stuff in social media and the mainstream media. He's like, you know what? Let's prepare our football because our football will win us the trophy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely outstanding for him. You know, the snobbery in the media, I think part of that is it was the fact he was joining Celtic. You know, don't get look at the guy across the city. Apparently he's the best manager ever, according to the media. He's never managed anything. Ange came in, serial winner. So part of that is, I think, is bias in the media. You know, you had him coming out calling him for him to go. You could see he was building something special. But he's not good enough.
It's happened before. It's happened before. Remember Wim Jansen?
Yeah.
Right. So the headline at the time, Jared, and you could probably search and find this. It was, and I'm paraphrasing here. He was called the worst thing to hit Hiroshima. Yeah. He did. I mean, that was the headline, right?
Look what he done to Dr. Joe.
Dr. Joe.
With respect to European,
called him a blank check.
Yeah, Dr. Who, blank check.
Yeah.
It kind of just shows you. You just want to write an egg story about Celtic. I was lucky enough to spend some time with Socrates just when he'd signed Ange and got his insight.
Aldinho.
That's him. Yeah, the very man. And he was saying, look, he's a manager at the City Group. You go and get the best managers. So the guy's a serial winner. You know, what more would we want in a manager?
But Aldinho needs to stop telling all his Manchester United pals this as well, though, Lawrence.
Yes. Yes. Listen, I think they've done okay at the weekend as well.
They've been steadied. I think that ship has been steadied. I'm going through this.
Shame for the manager of the other team, but that happens, doesn't it?
Hey ho. Jim Kerr, Kurdistan was bouncing last night. It's always brilliant to look at the analytics on YouTube to see who's tuning in. And we do appreciate every single one of you coming in. Joe Hamilton, Big Carl Starman was brilliant again. We will definitely talk about Carl Starfelt and some of the individual performances in the cup final yesterday. Because you brought it up, Joe, let's talk about Carl. Now, the thing with Carl Starfelt is that some people have got it in their mind that he could be improved on. He's got a mistake in him. I heard that in the commentary yesterday, etc., etc. Now, there's a couple of wee moments of madness, Jared, right, that you don't want to see. Of course you don't. You don't want to see somebody try to scoop the ball over somebody's head in your own box. However, take them out of the equation. Starfelt was solid yesterday. He had a very, very good game, didn't he?
Yeah, it's for me, when it comes to centre-backs and defensive midfielders, if I don't hear the commentators saying their name a lot, I don't really notice them, which means they're doing their job. And the thing with Starfelt is you've got those panic merchants who are like, they think he's the second coming of Dedrick Boyata. For me, he was a massive bomb scare. Anytime I heard his name, I was like, oh no, here we go. Starfelt is playing out of position. They're playing him left centre-back. I'm not making an excuse for him. But yeah, overall, when all you hear is Starfelt with the header, Starfelt with the header, Starfelt with the header on commentary, it's like, okay, that's all I need to hear.
Yeah.
He's doing his job.
The big thing for me as well is there was a moment in the game yesterday where what Carter Vickers does is often memorable because it can be a last-ditch thing that he does. And he done it twice that I can remember yesterday, where you're thinking to yourself, if we didn't have him, that's a definite goal. He makes a block in the first 15 minutes, which was a headed block, but it was followed up by a tremendous block by Starfelt. But so often you remember the Carter Vickers one. And then on the 30th minute, in the 6-yard box, that tackle, that intervention, I think it was Sakala who was just hanging around at the back post. That's a definite goal if Carter Vickers isn't there. And he's very good at that. But Starfelt, like Jared says, Lawrence, he's the guy that's winning header after header after header. He's winning the tackles. He's doing all that defensive bit. It just so happens sometimes if he finds himself with the ball at his feet, either in his own box or at the edge of his box, and he doesn't act quickly enough, he panics a wee bit, I think. But I said yesterday, I still think, even at his age, that's an element of his game that you can work around. That's an element of the game that you can still actually rid him of by not putting him in the positions in the first place.
So you're kind of, the media saying that there's a mistake in him, he can be improved on. You could probably say that about all bar 11 players in the world, the players at best position. It's kind of just lazy for them. His defensive stance as a Celtic player are outstanding. Mm-hmm. He's part of a really tight defensive unit that don't lose a lot of goals. What do they have to do to convince them that he's a decent centre-half? We've all seen some less than decent centre-halves at Celtic Park. That's the card. Starfelt's far from that. He's a great player for us. Part of the best team I've seen at Celtic. And the stick he takes, I think it's another thing that's media driven. They always like to target a Celtic centre half, tell you how much of a bomb scare he is. You never really hear that happening across the city. Regardless of how bad they are or how many saves their centre halves make, you don't go, boy, oh.
I knew that was coming. Lawrence.
He's likely to handle the ball in the box, so I better watch him.
No, you're right. So, Starfelt's had more criticism for his performances than Goulson has for his saves. He has. That's just a fact.
And it's, do you want a centre half that's prone to handling the ball? If we had him, the number of penalties against us would be even higher.
I'm going to throw something at you right now, Lawrence, whilst we're talking about it. What do you think of the performance of the officials yesterday?
Fairly quiet, mate, which they should be. They were okay. I was shocked. Probably the biggest shock of the weekend is Rangers didn't get a penalty. Let's be honest. You were in the run-up to the game, every Celtic fan I spoke to, guys at the event Friday night, were all saying the biggest dangers are beating on Walsh. If those guys do their job, in any way half decent, we'll win the game. And they did, and we won the game. But yeah, they were decent, but no more than that. No, should we be overly excited because they didn't award a penalty Rangers or send one of your guys off? I wouldn't say so. It's something that we should be getting every week. Performances like that. But yeah, they were okay. Nothing more, mate.
No, that's all you want. You just want them to fly under the radar. You want them not to be a discussion point. And I was delighted that obviously they weren't. But I thought I'd throw it over to you anyway, Lawrence, because I know it's one of your favourite subjects. Terence Pat, I've never seen a manager who has achieved nothing and is a complete nobody come into a club so smug and arrogant as Beale. And we opened up with that kind of chat and we kind of just said, just leave them to it. If that's how they want to conduct themselves, leave them to it because it's not working. And this often happens. Calmac, 10 out of 10. Sometimes, you get, obviously, the likes of Kyogo getting the plaudits, and rightly so. You get Carter Vickers for his work at the back. One point I would make, and it wasn't just this part of his game yesterday, but see the second goal, Jared, the part McGregor plays in that second goal. Often the highlights might not even pan back to when McGregor drives forward, because it's him that drives the team forward from the midfield before Moy gets it and plays a brilliant ball to Hatate, who does so well to get the ball across. But, I mean, McGregor has already entered the 400 appearance club. He's now getting to that point. I think that's his 18th trophy. There are only, I believe, 3 Celts who are 20-plus trophies. if I'm right. Lawrence, keep me right. Is it Bobby Lennox, Billy McNeil, Scott Brown?
I think so, mate.
Maybe even Jamesy. I think maybe Jamesy's got 20. Jamesy Forrest.
Yeah, James is bound to have it, isn't he?
Yeah. So, year on year, game by game, Jared, this man, Callum McGregor, is he's certainly putting any doubters in their place in terms of his leadership qualities. But again, he's just putting in these performances game after game after game. And sometimes he doesn't get the credit for it.
The funny thing is, like what you just said about that second goal, I noticed that when watching it, it's like the ball's there to be won. There's two Rangers players there that could have easily got it, and he's just bolted straight in, won the ball, drove it forward, and he's like basically thread the needle to get to it. And I'm just like, that's just big game experience right there. And to think that he didn't really get his debut in the first team, what was he, 21, something like that? Or was he a bit older when he broke in? So if he's like 28, 29 now, he's had 400 games. It's like, it's just crazy to think of late start and he's still there, but it gives hope that those other guys coming through who aren't quite breaking in at 16, 17, but at the same time, McGregor's just on another level. Like, I love Bruni, first ever player whose name and number I ever got on a shirt. Calmac will have to be the second one.
I just love the fact, like Scott Brown, there's some similarities. Scott Brown obviously never came through the ranks, Lawrence, but he makes his debut into his 20s. He wasn't fancied by a lot when he got the captain's armband from Tony Mowbray. It was that gave Scott Brown it. So there's some similarities there. But then he goes on to have a trophy-laden Celtic career, makes over 600 appearances, wins over 20 trophies for the club, captain for all of them, I think. And then you've got McGregor emulating him. And again, as I say, you see him after the game and he's composed. He's got class about him. There's none of this arrogance and entitlement and all this kind of stuff. And he's grown into a player that I don't think many of us seen that in his early days. When Ronnie Dyler introduced him to the club, Lawrence, I don't think many of us could have envisaged what Callum McGregor has gone on to achieve.
No, definitely not. 15th final yesterday, 15 winners' medals. It's outstanding, isn't it? We almost sold him, as well? Yeah, down to Notts County, decent there, and now he just gets better season and season. Very rarely makes an error on the park, but in the past, teams you might have said a player like McGregor's probably irreplaceable. Is he now? With the squad that Ange's built, could you drop Moy in there? O'Reilly came in and done okay. You've got Oata as well. He's been absolutely phenomenal. How many games he'll clock up and how many trophies by the end of his career? Who knows? But the way he conducts himself, it's outstanding. He doesn't go on to slag other teams or other players and say, you know what, he's a rubbish, he's a won. Very little, even your own supporters are telling you that. He can barely win anything. He just goes on, talks about Celtic and how we'll perform, about the manager, thanks to fans. He's just a great ambassador for the club. But as a footballer, fantastic.
Yeah, he cannot be underrated or undervalued. And Barry McCormack at game, I was relatively relaxed and thought we were largely in control. Was surprised to see so much panic in group chats after the game. And the thing is, Barry, watching it back this morning, there was a small spell, and you get that from getting back into the game with a goal. There was a small spell there where Rangers probably had more possession. But over the piece, you're absolutely right. If you were to look at the game in its entirety, Celtic just under 60% possession, 14 shots on goal, 5 on target. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. And, we could have scored a couple near the end. I'm looking back again at Ange and what he's done. It's not just about developing a side that's capable of winning trophies. We spoke a hell of a lot about culture at the football club, Jared, and in particular, in Neil Lennon's final season, we felt that there had to be a culture change. And then what happens with a culture which is instilled at a football club is it can continue once the person who's implemented it leaves. And I think that's hugely important. I always go back to the Liverpool boot room, and it was probably, and someone in the comments who's maybe more of a Liverpool aficionado than myself might correct me, I think it was Bill Shankly that started that ball rolling. you know, and it went right through the European glory days under Bob Paisley, and you know, even right up to Kenny Dalglish. And it was a culture within that club about room mentality. They knew, you know, what Liverpool was about, and when new players came in, they bought into that mentality. And I think that's a similar thing that Ange has been creating at Celtic, Jared.
Yeah, it's I think it was obvious to see, like when we had that, you had that first fan media press conference, and Ange gets out there and he starts talking to us regular, you know, content creators, podcasters, YouTubers, whatever. And he's talking, and everyone could go, okay, this guy gets it, he relates to it. And then you see that training video with the "We Never Stop" that's gone from there. And you look at it and go, okay, he's come in and he set a marker. This is what I want. He's very strict with, and Ange has always been this way. This is what I want. This is what's going to happen. And either you get with the program or the door's over there. He's always been that way, no matter where he is. So see him coming in going, this is good because we did need a culture change, because you can't, if you just put in a new manager and let that just keep permeating through the club and continue to happen and happen and happen, then at the end of the day, nothing's going to change. So, yeah, needed to happen, needed the culture change. Callum McGregor was a big factor in that, in my opinion, as well, because like you hear, if you listen back to some of the Ange interviews and new players coming in, oh yeah, when I was in hotel quarantine, Callum reached out to us and calling me every day, blah, 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 that sort of stuff. So you can see that the two driving factors behind this was the gaffer and the captain. And honestly, it shows a lot, in my opinion. You've got two guys who've got made of the right stuff, who are successful and win trophies, and it's rolled it out from there. So
I think there's a ruthlessness to that as well, Jared, that you're talking about. If you don't buy into this, there's the door. We've probably seen it already a couple of times at Celtic. But I was watching an interview, I forget the player's name, and it was someone who Ange actually played with at South Melbourne, it would have been. And then by the time Ange is the manager of that side, his mate, a guy who he roomed with and all this kind of stuff, is still at the club, and Ange gets rid of him. You know, there was just this ruthlessness about him. And I don't think they're doing it to be ruthless. I just think that they're doing it from a perspective, Lawrence, of they know in order to achieve the success, that sentimentality that you spoke about before has to go out the window. And that's very difficult in life and in business and in football and, you know, top class sport. And, you know, athletes are going to be put out by that. But I don't think it bothers Ange in the slightest. What I want to talk about, that 15-minute spell or so, maybe not even 15 minutes, I think we've been tested like that before in the past, Lawrence, and it shows the character of the side. It's not just the slogan, you know, that we never stop. When the chips are down and you need to show that character, Celtic have shown it time and time again, and I think we showed it yesterday.
Yeah, you know, Ange has got them tremendously fit. He's got them committed, well drilled. When the players know the job they've got to do in the park, they know Ange isn't going to accept, you know, half-hearted attempts or them not putting everything into it. He wants guys that will run through brick walls for him, that follow the plan. He's given them a winning formula. Listen, boys, this is the football. This is how it works. It'll win. Just do your job. It's got to be brilliant for the players knowing this. You know, they know that they're going to take to the park. If they follow what Ange tells them, they'll win. You know, if you're a player, you know, you've come over to Glasgow to play your football, knowing that you're going to win stuff and play in Europe, that's going to be attractive for players.
Yeah.
And if players don't fancy it or they start creating something in the background, the manager's quite right to get them out. No, we shouldn't be begging players to come here or to stay here or to do better. You know, you can think of players that Skepovic or Ajeti, that, you know, the manager had to really persuade him to come over. You're kind of going, how did that work out for us? You know, it was so bad it was in the press, he needs another week to think about signing for us. And Ange's kind of realised something. If they don't want to be here, you know, Gordon Strachan said it. They don't want to play in front of 60,000 fans every second week and win trophies. This isn't the club for them. You know, move on. Because there's loads of players that will grab it and want to do it. You know, it's a great platform for them. And yeah, Ange, whether it's ruthless or just laser focused, he knows what he wants, and he's not going to let any players detract from that. So, like, as Jared said, you know, this is a programme. Get with it, or just get out the door.
Yep,
you know,
absolutely.
I'm the manager. What I say goes.
I'm the boss. And that's the thing. I mean, he's always been called the boss. And I also was watching, Jared, you might well be aware of this, but when Ferenc Puskas went over to Australia to manage, apparently he was turning up in like training gear that was a bit outdated. And there was a couple of trendier players at the club at that time. And one of them got sick of seeing Ferenc Puskas running about in an old training top that was probably 30-year-old. So he took his jersey off the, the peg in the dressing room and threw it to the gaffer and says, "You can have that." And it just so happened to be a Hugo Boss top. And across the front it said Boss. And from that day forth, everybody called Puskas Boss. And I find it interesting that that's carried on into Angie's managerial career as well, because we all call him Boss as well, or Mr. Postecoglou. Brendan Monaghan, or Dad, if you're Declan. Happy Monday from the Netherlands, says Brendan. Check Brendan out on the socials. A musician, you'll be able to download his tracks as well, and I hope you're doing well. And we've also got Sean McGee, 22 trophies in 11 years. We definitely set the standards, 100%. And Jonathan Smith, just back in Dublin from the match yesterday. Unbelievable commitment. Our Irish fans show every single week, coming over to watch Celtic. That's you just getting home. We're going to be talking about a couple of more performances before we move on. Jared, I'll come to you first. The main man, Moy. All the chat leading up to this game. Is it O'Reilly? Is it Moy? He comes back into the team. I'm watching him yesterday getting, kicked quite a few times in the first 15 minutes, going in and winning balls, breaking up attacks. But he was also involved in the two goals, showing his creativity, his passing ability. You knew he was going to come off at some point because of the work rate, throughout the game. But I thought he was one of the star men. In fact, he was probably the best midfielder yesterday, Jared.
Absolutely. And the funny thing is, like, the amount of, he always looks like he's a step slow. He's just such a languid runner, like so slow moving and that. But his biggest asset as a player is up here. It's all in his head. And where he was positioning himself to cut off passes, to make them have to make an extra pass so the press can recover. He was doing that sort of thing. So he did a lot of off-the-ball work on top of when he did have the ball. And, he's made a huge impact on the game. And, sorry, Matt O'Reilly, but, you're the rotation piece now. The midfield three going forward, you don't really want to change it because one game a week basically is Moy, Hatate and Kelmack. It's that simple.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And when O'Reilly comes on, it could wrap the game up, Lawrence. He gets a very good chance near the end of the game to make it 3-1. But I'm totally in agreement with Jared here. That is the strongest midfield right now, and it's going to take something pretty special to break that trio up.
Well, that's what you want, isn't it? It's that competition. When you get your chance, when you get your minutes on the park, you need to take your chance. If O'Reilly had scored, he's pressing his case then for maybe getting to start 11. If he didn't take the chance, he'll know. Listen, that probably means Moy's going to stay in the team over me, and it's great for the players that it's driving them on to bigger levels. Was Moy the best midfielder on the park? Surely with those world beaters, Kent and Tillman on there, he must have been superhuman to be better than them. I did like Jota's nutmegging in Kent though.
It was
the only reason I knew he was on the park. It was Jota nutmegging him. But there's another boy. He's only got 2 trophies he won't win before his contract runs out.
Well, the thing is, we'll talk about the aftermath of this and the impact this is going to have. Lawrence, I was talking a wee bit about it yesterday in the pre-match, about how if we were sitting here in the worst-case scenario, we didn't win the cup yesterday, we'd be licking our wounds, but we knew we would know, we'd be safe in the knowledge that we've got the right man in charge of the football club. We've got a structure behind the scenes which is solid in terms of a financial and a recruitment process, and we've got a squad that is 2 or 3 deep. So you'd be sitting here saying, what, sometimes that can happen in cup football. We'd all be disappointed. But that the future is still bright, and it's rosy. I'm sorry, that's not the same scenario at Rangers. They must be looking at the situation just now. And some of their fans probably are aware of it because that's why the banner was unfurled the other week there. Some of their fans are coming to the realisation that they are being left behind and the standard is being set by Celtic, Lawrence.
Yeah, well, if you talk about different standards, 22 trophies in 11 years, so it's 2 trophies a year. I think if you go less than two trophies now, it's a bad season for Celtic. That sort of standard. if they manage to get one, it's probably the best thing that's happened in years. The golf, St John's didn't have as many trophies as them at the end of the day. So it kind of shows where they are as a club. And I think Ange's right. He's not even focusing on them. He doesn't even have to, other than when they run up to the game, is the only time he looks at them. Because he's building something special here that he won't let comments on social media or, oh, he's a lucky manager. Jeez. From a manager who's had game-changing decisions in his first 10 games, referring to somebody else as lucky. Just very ironic. But Ange isn't going to be kind of deflected from the path that he's on, building something really special. And with the quality he's getting, the club's really well run. We've got a lot of money in the bank. It is Europe he's looking at. And I think, 2 trophies a year in Scotland, I think that's the minimum that we've come to expect now. From us. Anything less than that, it's a bad season for us.
Yeah.
If it's 1 trophy every few years, I think that's successful. And it just shows where the 2 clubs are.
But that was the trend, Lawrence, pre-90s. If you go from the 60s to the 90s, for 30 years, that was the trend. Until this so-called revolution happened, but I'm not quite sure it was a Scottish football revolution. I want to come to you, Jared, because at the end of the game, I often love watching the celebrations of the players and that coming together of the players and the fans and Celtic singing "You'll Never Walk Alone," and some of the guys haven't experienced that in a Celtic jersey, or indeed in their career. That winning of a trophy, the winning of a cup. Even Jota, he was injured last season when we won the cup, so he didn't get the chance to experience that in the League Cup. But then you get Ange Postecoglou going over. And I think that, going back to something you said before, nothing he does is contrived. It's pure emotion, and it's real, and it's authentic, right? And he went up, and there was just a moment where I'm thinking about all the rumours and all the gossip and all the guff that's been written about Ange Postecoglou in the last couple of months now, about him going to Everton and then he's going to Leeds and who else is going to be next, and he's punching that badge on his jacket. But I actually think he means something. It's not like one of these badge kissers, Jared, and we've seen loads of them down the years, right? I think there was a wee message in that. Am I looking too much into it? Is that wishful thinking?
I thought the same thing, because Ange doesn't really go for the badge very often like that. So he did it at South Melbourne back in the day because that was his junior club and everything. He did it at Australia after we won the Asian Cup. I remember him doing it there. Can't really remember him actually grabbing it, beating it, or kissing a badge very often. So the fact that he was up and about doing that after, getting that cup and everything was just magic to see.
Oh, it was. What was your thoughts, Lawrence? Because it struck a chord with me after the game. I was thinking to myself, right, people were even criticising him for not putting the rumours to bed adequately enough when he was asked about it and all this nonsense. He asks Ali McCoist for a run to Celtic Park and he's punching the badge. I just thought there's a message in there.
Oh, yeah, definitely a message to the media. I'm just surprised that, for the length of time that he's been there, the media just don't seem to have learned anything. They seem to fall into the same traps all the time. Andy's he's far too smart for him, and putting it to bed. This is the media trying to stir up a story, and just get a team prepared to win a cup. He's not going to go and go, oh right, this is what we've got to say about rumours about Leeds or Southampton or whatever, because he's not interested. It doesn't add to the value of the team in the park, so he's not interested. He's in the job of creating a winning football team. And he's doing a pretty decent job of it, despite, the predictions of some of the sages in the media. They told us it would be gone by Christmas.
The sages, absolutely. Now, there's been quite a lot of talk about music, which we don't mind on a Celtic State of Mind whatsoever. Obviously, Lucky Man has been a song that we've been discussing over the last few weeks for obvious reasons, and Davy O'Raw comes in with Aaron Moy. I'm sorry, guys, I would have probably sang that had my throat not been as sore as it is today. But it leads me on to the Jota on the Wing song, right? I cannot get it out of my head, right? And it's great anyway, but then a new version comes out, and it's Ellie Dixon on BBC 5 Live with Patrick Kielty. And obviously, as you do, you then find her on YouTube, and the full version is on there, and I can't stop watching it, guys.
On Twitter as well, mate. She's got it, the full version on Twitter as well. Yes.
It is superb. Jared, you had a chance to see it.
Very, very talented. I'll tell you that. I've heard it. I heard the BBC thing, and I'm like, "Who's this?" And then I saw her on Twitter, and I'm like, "Okay, really nice voice."
Very, very good. Yeah, it's hypnotic. We need to get her on the show,
talented
Lawrence.
girls, mate.
Yeah, I know what's
a
coming.
decent result on Friday, wasn't there?
Absolutely. Yeah, Friday night. You want to fill us in?
Fran Alonso's charges dispatching the team across the city 3-0.
Yes.
Yeah. And Caitlin Hayes, Amy Gallagher, these are names that probably prior to lockdown, I didn't have a great knowledge, Lawrence. I'm going to be honest here. I didn't have a great knowledge of the women's team, but we started covering them during the lockdown, and of course, Natasha kind of took that back and ran with it. Ended up getting a silver award for her coverage of women's football just last year, and we get press accreditation for the games now. And it's one of these things that, we're hoping that the game does grow, and I hope that there's more games at Celtic Park. I think that to try and get the interest, we need to try and build it into the season ticket. A wee bit like back in the day where you could go to watch the reserve games on your season book, Lawrence.
Yeah, and get free travel.
Yep.
Remember Ferguson got free travel in Strathclyde area?
Yeah.
But, they definitely, see if it was played at Celtic Park, or I know they get permission for a small stadium to be built in Barrowfield. So I don't know if they're going to go ahead with that. But yeah, they definitely need to bring into the season book, don't they?
I think so.
But, great result for them, led by, is it Jacinta Prema de Nieva Galabadarichichi? Is that it? It's the Australian star
I was just about to say that.
Another Australian doing a great job.
Another Melburnian, even better. Down that way.
Now, I've got to... I can't go through today's show without mentioning two guys. I say guys, two legends, Martin O'Neill and Tom Boyd. But before I do that, Jared, I want you to tell us exactly where to find Celtic Down Under. Let us know a wee bit more about the great work that you're doing.
All right, so Celtic Down Under started as a podcast in 2019. We branched out into YouTube, the podcast one every Wednesday. The last 2 weeks we've branched out, so now we have a weekend review show every Monday on the YouTube channel. Tuesday, as of last week, we got another show, the Tuesday Crew, and then Wednesday is the original podcast that I'm on with Liam, Sean, the guys who appear on here as well. So yeah, we've got 3 shows going out a week now, and you can find them. Look for Celtic Down Under logo. It's up on the top corner of the screen there. You can find us on YouTube and on all the podcast apps.
Superb. And I just love getting a view from someone so far away, and how much commitment is actually required for you guys just to watch a game. We kind of take that for granted. So yeah, tune in, get subscribing, like, follow, retweet, do all the good stuff that allows the channel to grow. But I'm not trying to push anything, because these are events that happened over the weekend there. But I had the absolute privilege and pleasure of spending some time with Tom Boyd on Friday, and then Martin O'Neill on Saturday. Now, their conversations were tremendous, absolutely superb. Some people asked if we filmed them. We don't film the live events for a couple of reasons. Mainly, we want them to be free and easy with what they're saying. And so filming it probably wouldn't allow that. But also just the logistical nature of doing that as well, when you're in a full venue, and sometimes, for example, at Gracie's, it might not be easy to get a film crew in there. But anyway, if you want to see what's happening, come along to one of our gigs. The next one's with Tomo, Alan Thompson, the boy from Seville, and the link is underneath. But the reason I'm bringing it up is, and I'm not exaggerating, I think over the 2 nights, maybe a dozen individuals came up to me, right, to speak about a Celtic State of Mind. And every one of them said that they found a Celtic State of Mind during the pandemic, and it became part of their daily routine, part of the structure of their day. And they thanked us, not just me, but just thanked everybody that's involved for helping them through that dark and bleak period. And what I was saying to them, my response to that was, that's really touching to hear that, But at the same time, it gave certainly me, and I know some of the other contributors, the exact same structure to their days during what could have been very, very dangerous and dark times. So I just think it was tremendous all this time after, once we're out of that period, that people still remember it for that. And they brought it up. And it's just really another reminder just to, open up if you're feeling like that. Speak to people. We're not experts, Lawrence, but you will know someone who is. We certainly do. And always reach out and tell us, because I can't tell you because I'm not an expert, but I'll be able to put you in touch with someone. And it's incredible to hear that people were, enthused and helped by a Celtic State of Mind. And I just wanted to bring that up because that's so, so important. If anyone is struggling, reach out to us and we'll be able to put you in touch with the specialists and the experts. I'm absolutely delighted to say that I got through that hour. I think I'm going to have to go and recover until Thursday now because my throat is done. There's a bit of damage. Yeah, there was a bit of singing and shouting yesterday. But yes, thank you everybody for continuing to support what we do. Thank you to Lawrence Conley and Jared Hill for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.